Hello, and welcome to this week's Time on the Terrain, primarily reflecting on connection. And this is a theme that we've been exploring over the last 2 months in a co hosted, co created webinar series called Leadership Now, which I'm co curating with my friend and colleague, Mel Lipkowitz. And there's been other things going on, for us these past 2 months and this last week, but we had the second of these two seminars focusing on connection yesterday. And these are intimate forums for leaders at all levels, but primarily executive leaders. And there were a couple of really salient comments that came from this group. And I just wanted to share those, and I think that they would be beneficial as key features in the terrain right now. And just to very, very briefly explain, Curated Conversations is essentially a leadership space that Mel and I have co-designed and co-curate, where we focus each month on a specific topic. And then we're essentially taking a group of leaders in a virtual environment on an inclusive, discursive exploration of that topic, of the resonant points for them, and then essentially building action plans and deployable takeaway interventions that they can all go and work on themselves. This is a community that is building and is coming together. And I would highly recommend that if any of the things that I talk about in this forum or anywhere online are of interest, that webinar and that community could be of use and interest to you. So go check it out. It's on Eventbrite. Go and have a look at either PQ Factor or 4Eyes LinkedIn pages where all the events are listed there, or you can just search on Eventbrite for Curated Conversations. Promotional pitch over. So the couple of key comments that came out of yesterday's forum were around sort of modes of connection and the need for it. One comment in particular was that in flattening organizational hierarchies, that there is more interconnection across the organization, and that essentially increases the need to engage with stakeholders, and quite often multiple stakeholders. So essentially, if you just visualize the more sort of conventional organizational hierarchy where it's downward, sort of sticks or silos, and within those areas, there's quite a tight band of stakeholders that you'll need to engage with. You can kind of go here and here, gather the accord you need, and then you go up to deliver the message. Well, now that those silos are being eroded and broken down, and we're coming into compressed, broader horizontal hierarchies, now there's stakeholders far more diversely, far more spread geographically, and organizationally. So needing to spend time to engage those stakeholders before you then reach up to deliver the advice or the recommendation or the decision, that is much more prominent. And this was coming from an executive who's working in a senior level in a global organization that is enormous and trillions of dollars of revenue. And he was saying that they're really starting to feel this impact now. They've gone through a major org redesign since a new CEO came in. And he's now continually being provoked to go and engage much more directly with his stakeholders. And that we then circle back on to the second point, which was the influence of emotion in decision-making and the impact of language. And those things really we sort of brought together, and we talked about conversation as the key lever for connection, and that's the ideal forum to engage at an emotional level in the decision-making process, and essentially to be very conscious and potentially cautious of your language as you're entering into those forums. Now, that's an expansive topic in of itself. So I'll really leave it there today with just this one final salient thought, which was an anecdote that one of the leaders brought forth in the campfire part of the conversation that we have. We do literally virtually sit around a campfire. It's BYO marshmallows, but the idea is there. And the question was this: that in a relationship with somebody that had been quite extensive, about 18 months or so, I think, if I recall correctly, was the duration that this executive had known this peer executive. And they felt like they had a good relationship, and then all of a sudden it seemed to diminish, and they weren't sure what was going on, or what was something that they'd done or said in one of those conversations. And they went to seek some advice from a mentor. And the mentor said, "Well, have you recently or ever asked that person how they're feeling?" And that question is, of course, all about emotion. And that when they did then go and ask that person how they were feeling and they received a response, it immediately shifted, deepened, and escalated the quality of the relationship. And they were able to make progress and quickly traverse through the terrain that that person was navigating and progress into a far more productive relationship. So maybe just as a simple question that you could be asking yourself or someone that you're working with, where there's maybe been a change or a bit more friction in the relationship of late, and see where you get to. I hope some of that will be helpful. I hope, if anything that I've said today has a bit of interest, we might see you in a future curated conversations session with Mel or I. Just as an FYI, I'm hosting the next two sessions around purpose. So we'll hope to see you there. All the best. Be well, lead well, and build a better world. Thank you for your time and attention in today's Time on the Terrain.